Hi, and welcome to Introduction to International Relations. This class is going to be perhaps a little bit more theoretical than you may be used to in your political science classes, and I want to say a couple of things about that. First, on a practical level, I've tried to keep the reading to a manageable level. These theories are worth not only reading, but reacting to, thinking about. Before we get into our first concrete theory, which is going to be realism, I want to ask this. How should we think about these theories on a meta level? Can they all be true? Let me start with what may seem like a bit of a diversion. Off the top of your head, ask yourself, what is the relative size of Greenland compared to Africa? And either just jot down or make a note to yourself of which your guess is. So I'm going to wait a moment for you to do that. And then we'll talk not only about what the actual answer is, but about what any of that has to do with international relations theory. Actually, the continent of Africa is 14 times larger than Greenland. So why do most people get that wrong? Why do most people think that the two are about the same? The map that most of us see the most and have seen the most is the Mercator projection. In the Mercator projection, while directions are accurate, the size of objects near the poles is exaggerated, is larger than it is on the actual globe. It's impossible, of course, to make a flat map that is completely accurate, a completely accurate representation of a round. The Mercator projection was developed for European sailors' use in navigating because it would give accurate directions. It wasn't particularly important if the relative sizes of land masses were distorted. But it's worth noting that this was a projection developed by and for the use of Europeans, and it happens to show Europe as somewhat larger in relative size than it actually is. The Peters is a better map projection to compare the sizes of land masses. All of the objects on here, their relative sizes are accurate. However, it would not be very good for navigation because some of the directions are not. This projection, which I won't even attempt to pronounce, shows accurately both the sizes and shapes of all land masses. But it clearly and majorly distorts by making it appear that the poles are interrupted, cut apart. It looks as though to travel from one part of the South Pole to another, you would have to go north and then return, which clearly is not the case. But this is not a class in cartography, so just one more point before I relate this all to international politics. The way that we are used to viewing countries on the maps is completely arbitrary. There's no up or down in space. The fact that we are used to seeing the northern hemisphere on the top of maps, it's no more correct than this map, which shows the southern hemisphere atop. Is a perfect map even possible? A perfect representation of the Earth? I'd argue it is neither possible nor is it even desirable. Simplification, pointing our attention to certain features, is an essential and necessary feature of any map. It's both a strength and a weakness of any map, or any theory. As our textbook argues, theories are, among other things, heuristic devices pointing us towards which aspects of the real world, which phenomenon we should pay the most attention to as we try and understand international politics. One way to approach the theories we are going to employ is to see them as tools for approaching, for understanding certain aspects of international relations? And if so, we should ask regarding each theory, what job is this tool for? What questions is this theory attempting to answer? And who is using this tool? Who is asking the questions? From whose perspective does this theory see the world? This cartoon humorously suggests that New Yorkers have a somewhat New York-centric view of the world. But a theory we'll look briefly at later in the semester, dependency theory, argues that many of the international relations perspectives have been developed explicitly from a first world, a European or American point of view, and that it's at least as important to reincorporate the view of the less affluent countries. One theory we'll look at later in the semester, Marxism, has a term for when we mistake our simplified version of the world, our theory, when we mistake that for actual reality. You don't have to remember the word reification, but do remember not to mistake our theories, our tools, for the world itself. And most importantly, you should be thinking about, what is your reaction to each of the theories? What do you see as the strengths and weaknesses of each